Hello, everyone, and welcome to another powerful interview. And this week, I actually have a tremendous guest for your edification, entertainment, and enlightenment. So, without further ado, I have the honor to welcome this week's guest, Benjamin John, a successful entrepreneur, an award-winning author, and public speaker. He has studied under Grant Cardone and is a 10x business coach. He's the owner of Massive Impact Coaching and the Massive Impact League. Ben, I'd like you to welcome to the show. And how are you doing first and foremost?
James, I'm doing good, man. And the intro was spot on, man. That was actually pretty impressive. So thank you very much. That made me feel really welcomed and I'm humbled to hear that, man, coming back from somebody else. But I appreciate that, man. And yes, it's fantastic to actually get to carve out some time with you and your fantastic show and see what kind of value we can drop, what kind of stories we can share. And it's exciting, man. I can't say enough about that.
Lovely. Thank you for your time. So before we go into a little bit of what you're up to today and the quite frankly amazing strides you're making in the coaching industry and helping many people on a global scale, before we go into that, Ben, can you actually tell me a little bit about where you grew up and perhaps some of your most early influences?
Yeah. Okay, so I appreciate the hell. I'm going to stop and say I appreciate the hell out of that question because I've been on a lot of podcasts and done a lot of these, and a lot of people go right into the business and the sales questions, and not a lot of people have actually asked me about the meat and potatoes and the history of kind of how I got to where I'm at. I kind of bring that out naturally, but I like that you asked that because those are the kind of stories I like hearing from other people as well. I want to know some history. I want to hear some good stories.
Yes.
But to answer your question, I'm from Washington State, USA, a little town called Yakima. And I ended up kind of migrating to an even smaller town called Natchez after that. And that's kind of where I started. Went to California for a year of my junior year in high school, and then ended up recently moving to Florida. But the majority of that's been in Washington. To answer your question about guidance and mentorship and kind of who I looked up to in Yakima, where I grew up, there were some positive role models, but unfortunately, I wish I could tell you that I had some like great stories to tell you about role models and guidance at that time or during my childhood. But I have stories of being misguided a lot more than being guided by the right people. And it took me a lot of years and a lot of time in my 30s to be more specifically to realize that and how it affected my adult life and my business even.
Right. Now, I mean, as you say, some of those early influences may not have been positive in every sense of the word, and yet I like to unpick rather, with the benefit of our hindsight. Do you now see that perhaps some of those so-called negative experiences have molded you into the man, the entrepreneur you are today, Ben?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And even though I say, those mentors that I looked up to who were also misguided themselves that I was looking up to, even though I say, I don't want that to completely sound negative. I learned something from those experiences.
Good.
Some people learn it different ways, but that's the way I learned, and that's how my life was kind of just unfolded to me and how I approached it. But now that I think about this, going back to your first question, my stepdad was someone who was a positive influence to me. My brother-in-law, both my brother-in-laws, my brother was also a positive influence to me. My sister, some of the negative influences were people like at school that were someone I was trying to impress or look up to or trying to get acknowledgement from and recognition from, trying to prove myself essentially. So trying to really look for that acceptance in the wrong areas, if you will.
Certainly, certainly. No, I love the fact that you mentioned family. And is that something that the strong familial bonds, is that something that has continued to the present day, Ben? Is that fair to say?
For the most part, yeah. I will say I have gotten much better at just reaching out to some family members. But I will say, I haven't been the greatest at staying in connection with all my family members. but I have actively been making it a point to send them some videos and stuff like that, and really trying to do things that I don't normally do, or things that I've been doing in business and in my everyday life with other people. I'm like, why don't I do that with my family members?
Good point.
So
Yeah. No, that's lovely. Now, we're not going to stay here, but what I like to think about is going back to your formative years, maybe perhaps in middle and high school. Were you an excellent student? Because sometimes it provides helpful contrast to those who are growing up that might not be getting on at school or indeed are. Just can we offer a little bit of perspective there on your formative schooling years?
yeah, so when I applied myself, I consider myself not like super intelligent, but I'm pretty smart. And when I noticed about myself during my academic years growing up is that when I got it, and I excelled, and like it was an attraction to me. And so that was something I excelled at. But again, the misguided part of it, it took my focus off of education even being a primary thing for me at all. And so that's where it became a problem, and why I keep talking about mentorship so much, and why I wrote a book on it, and why I talk about it very frequently when I publicly speak as well, is because it really affects everybody's everyday life, and it has. And I like sharing stories about how I recognize how it affected my life from childhood to now.
Yes, yes. No, thank you for sharing, Ben. We're going to come on to some of your successes, as you say, obviously. However, I believe that failure is at least an equal as important, if not more so, part a role in a man's destiny ultimately. Can you, is there a particular story you are prepared to share about maybe a failure, and maybe a failure in particular, a so-called failure that you learnt from and again has shaped, has helped mold the entrepreneur, the successful man you are today, Ben?
Yes. I'm answering that right now, so I don't want to forget my thought there. So going back to your failure is equally important. 100%. Failure is. I heard an individual, Jimmy, who I was doing a coaching session with, a super sharp guy. He's like in the TV business. He said, and it stuck with me since he said this. He said the first person to fail is going to be the first person to succeed. And yeah, I've probably heard that before, but the way he said that really just hit home for me. And so, absolutely, failures in that regard, failure is that important, because it's almost necessary, right? It's
Mm.
going to happen. Get it out of the way. Learn from it as quick as you can. Confront it as quick as you can, as well as everything in your life. Like, take that as a lesson in everything in life.
Yes.
Um, one of the problems, and a story that I can use is something I learned from failing, is when I was I don't know, just to share a quick background story. I was a carpenter for 10 to 12 years, for 10 years for one company, and then for the next couple of years, periodically doing it. But I built conservatories and fully glass glazed sunrooms for one company.
Right.
What I did was, when I dove into my entrepreneurship at that point, I went into an industry with a business partner, and it was the cannabis industry. And it was the reason we went into that industry, out of the half a dozen businesses opportunities we looked at, was purely money driven. Me and my business partner thought we were going to be millionaires back in 2015, when it was like on the verge of becoming legal in the state and all kinds of things going on.
Right.
Long story short, we did this. Fast forward, we built out like a $500,000 operation. All of a sudden, I became a manufacturer and a distributor of cannabis within 10 months. And I built this operation out, and I did all this, right? Committed to it. So we didn't end up being millionaires. What ended up happening was, I found myself being shot at, being robbed, being in situations that I never thought in my life I would be doing. I wrecked my truck because I was just drained, staying up so many hours trying to operate this huge operation by myself a lot of times. I almost went to prison. It really just, all of this was purely because of me being money driven. I was chasing money. And the reason I was chasing money was because I actually learned it from my business partner. She was also money driven. I looked up to her. She had the multi-million dollar house on the lake, the workout room, the sun room. She had jet skis. She had it all, a boat. I looked up to that. So I thought chasing money was the solution.
Yeah.
Long story short, after I finally walked away from that industry and ended up creating my own construction business for the next 5 years and successfully scaling that, what I found through that experience and thinking about that 2 year experience when I went into that previous industry, chasing money does not solve any problems. It creates a lot of problems. But what I did find out was solving problems ended up attracting money for me.
Mm.
So that failure really got me to analyze all the decisions I've made, especially in particular in that last 7 year period when I
Yeah.
went through that.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Ben. And what stood out for me, and hopefully the listener there, was it's a seeming dichotomy, but as all the time you were exclusively focused on it, it even if it came, it seemed to flee, or it came attached with problems. Key point there, problems. Conversely, when you've since focused on the value, giving value, less about earning, the irony is you've earned plenty of money. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful sort of inbuilt win-win if we do it righteously, or certainly more ethically, let's say.
Yeah. And that's the lesson I can say I learned is that, chasing, if I was to sum that up, right, chasing money didn't solve my problems, but when I went into business, solving problems actually ended up attracting money effortlessly. There's a lot more lessons that were in that whole experience. You can imagine,
Yes.
and above all, though, that's a really important one that stood out to me as far as like really dissecting that handful of years, because there's a
Yes.
lot of transitioning and a lot going on there. I was like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think we might hopefully, God willing, unpick those in another interview. But for now, I think that does give a nice segue
Yeah,
into
people got to know that. People got to know that part about me, because
yes,
it was a lot in a little bit of time, and that's what really got me into the confidence in being a coach right
yes.
after my construction business. So it's good to at least brush it over so people know, like, oh wow, he actually did some of those things.
Certainly. No, I think you're right for context. It's vital, and that's why I asked the question. People often mistakenly think that success is built upon a pyramid of success. And yet
Right.
these hard times, as you say, god-awful things, being shot at, almost going to prison. I'm so delighted you mentioned this, because it gives hope, real tangible hope to the listener, to say that they may not be experiencing such drastic difficulties, and yet success, however you define it, is still not only probable but possible. So thank you for being so honest. I believe there's power in honesty.
Oh,
um
absolutely. I
However,
agree.
that brings us a little bit closer to the present day. I wanted to touch upon your coaching. And first, before we get into the present day specifics of your coaching business, can you just, we've come to it naturally, remind me of some of the reasons for going down that particular career path at this juncture in your life?
Yeah, so going back to when I started the construction business, I breezed through that, but that was actually that 5 year period, a lot went on in there too. So um what how I got to where I was I was failing at that business for about a year and a half when I started. I don't have business degree or accounting. I didn't study any of that. Someone told me, my nephew said, you should start your own business. I was sitting there living with my brother-in-law, renting a room out with my, at that time, 5 year old daughter. I was really down and out. You know what I mean? Like I really went into retreat trying to figure out what the hell my next move was. And at that time, my nephew incepted the idea. Well, because I said, I might just go back to what I know how to do, and I'm an expert at. And I was kind of playing with the idea: am I really going to go work for somebody again? Am I going to go crawling back to the company I worked for a decade?
Mm.
And then my nephew said, you should start your own business. And nobody had said that to me. I never thought it. I didn't know I could just start a business.
Mm.
And immediately I was like, really? It's that easy? He's like, yeah, you just go start a business. So he made it sound easy. And so the seed was planted just immediately. And that night I stayed up and drew my business logo. And it's the same logo we use to this day, 5 years later. So I really committed. But the first year and a half, I was driving, wasting time, money, and energy. With the construction business, you got to do on-site visits. So sometimes I'd spend 2 hours on-site. I'd drive a couple hours there, a couple hours back. So now I'm like 5, 6 hours in, and I would give a proposal on an email, and then no one would ever get back to me. It was super weak. I didn't have any strategies or skills. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff, yet I was trying to do all of it. But that same nephew, about after a year and a half, also handed me the 10X rule. If anybody knows that guy, he ended up becoming my mentor for the next 3 years. That's the book that actually helped me shift my mindset. I never thought like that. I never, entertained that at all. And so when I was listening to his audiobook, it really I resonated with it.
Yes.
And I started investing in him a little bit more and getting some strategies. I implemented those strategies into the business and really seeing a huge turnaround within the next year. Started profiting and became, I was only making like a couple $100,000 a year in that company. And I was able to hit like a few million a couple years later. And that was by pushing during COVID, like doing some of the things I learned and really just having an accelerated confidence mixed with skills and strategies to really connect with the community and know how to build a business. But that's how I got into it. That confidence to scale that business gave me the passion to want to help people in the same situation that's struggling with any of the thing I've went through: hiring employees, keeping employees, doing social media, getting on camera, you name it. I've struggled with all of it, and I've learned how to do it effectively and confidently. And so that's what gave me the confidence to start my own coaching business and then really take it a step further with the networking part of it.
Yeah, thank you for that outstanding explanation. And that leads nicely to the present day. And I know that you're doing some extraordinary things with effectively like university level type online scholars, teaching and so on. Can you tell the listener about a little bit more about your specific, the Massive Impact League and your impact coaching?
Yeah. So it's primarily designed to help businesses or individuals make more money, increase sales, or help work culture get on like a high performance level, or if an individual wants to get on that level. That's what it's meant to do by teaching you strategies, by setting you up with a 24/7 access platform that has curriculums that are engaging, that you interact with and you train on. But that's just half of it. Like the other half of it is the networking part. And that's where you're going to be tapped in with all the members, kind of like an exclusive Facebook, if you will, but in this branded community, Massive Impact League. There's going to be a few weekly calls set up. One for the high level members in there. A lot of them are, very successful. They have their own communities. So that's just going to be a networking call to connect with people, build your own business, share with what you got, learn from others. And then we're going to start doing calls for the people in the curriculums to help use each other's resources, answer questions, and give input and feedback and things of that nature. But this is building a community inside of a system that's going to lead to having our own events and really building it like everybody else has done, like my mentor has done with this 10X community, like, other big name guys that are really making an impact in individuals and in companies out there. That's what I'm trying to do, is really make the massive impact, if you will.
Yes. Oh, certainly. I mean, I've been privy, so the listener and the viewer has full context, to seeing just but not even 1% of the online course you shared with me, and thank you, Ben. But I was blown away with the standard. As I say, I deliberately referenced a university level because I think this is the future of online learning. Increasingly, we know the value of it. Ben, can you share with the audience who you actually developed this with? Because it's a fairly big name that has actually helped with this training. So just for context and for, if you like, authenticity, so people know how serious it is.
100%. And no one's actually asked me to elaborate on that. And I think that's important because that gives, well, one, it does a lot of things. It's going to give me credibility, and it's for a lot of things, it's going to also display the level of seriousness that I have with this, how committed I am. It says a lot. But I've made some huge investments, and this is one of them. Light speed virtual training systems is owned by Bradley. He's the one who I'm in partnership with. I established a rev share partnership and invested a lot of money to have him build this platform out for me so that I can train people on a scalable level and the most effective way. And that's how the reason I know that's effective is because my mentor Grant has I also invested in him a lot of money and also got access to his curriculums as well. So I've been training on the same type of system, but I now I use the system for every capability, and which takes a lot longer, but it makes for a more engaging and interactive training experience. And so, but yeah, I invested with Brad Lee, I invested with Grant Cardone, and I made a lot of investments as far as just scaling my business and even for the construction business. So, and the reason I say that, I'm emphasizing the investments is because when I'm training people and they're wondering like what validates him and gives him credibility is because I've paid the price with the years and the money to get in the rooms, get the knowledge from people and things like that. So you don't have to pay as much as I did. I've really made it accessible for a lot of people for much cheaper. And I'm going to be doing a lot more with it too. So I'm excited, man.
Oh, so am I. And Ben, just I think that leads nicely into what I know one of our joint values is the importance in perhaps not to that level for different people, but depending where they are financially, fine. But the importance of investing in yourself. Can you just speak on that particular thing just briefly? You've mentioned that you've done it clearly, but how important you personally think it is?
Yeah, so it's important for a lot of reasons. Let's just tap into a couple of those right now. The first reason, so let me actually elaborate on what I think an investment is and what it takes. An investment is something that is a commitment that requires your time, money, or energy. Usually it requires all three of them or a combination of a few of them, you know what I mean, or a couple.
Yep.
And so that's what it is. So the reason you need to invest, I'm going to give you practical reasons. The first reason that people don't really think of is because you're not going to take it seriously until you actually give up something of value. Sometimes money is not enough. Most times people value money more than their time, which is kind of funny because they're usually trading their time for it, ironically. But when they got that piece of paper in their hand, they have a hard time letting it go because they value it so much and they want to save it. And they think saving it is actually making more and it's working and it's doing something. So you need to invest because when people, the way I've heard it is when people pay, they pay attention. That's a funny way to kind of lock it into. And it's 100% true. Like if you're going to invest time, money, and energy into it, you're going to take it more seriously. You're going to pay attention. Therefore, you're going to apply it. Like and you're going to take more interest in it. So there's that reason right there that I think is super important. The other reason is you should just always be investing in like things to get you in proximity with people that you want to, like if someone's doing something you want to do, you need to get in proximity with them. You need to get in those type of rooms, virtually, physically, and those are the type of investments you need to make because those are the important ones, and that's why you need to do that. So see what I will say this. I had a coaching call with a young man, 18 years old, because I see something in him. And when I talked to him, he made an investment in me, a little investment in me to get my time. And that I told him, I was like, look, man, there's not a lot of 18-year-olds out there that are investing in self-improvement. You got to understand this. You're a percentage of that. So I was like, lean into that, man. Like I see something in you and that's what I'm seeing in you. And so I think it's important the younger you are too. If I see more 18-year-olds and kids like looking for ways to invest their time, what little money they have into being a better person and self-development, that's so cool to know that's not like just an adult thing. Now we're bringing it to an earlier and earlier age.
Excellent point. I agree. Yes, certainly. Yes. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And can you just speak to, because again, I have been keeping an eye on your Instagram posts, so I'm privy to this, but could you just speak to some of the high level types of chat we are seeing, the high level entrepreneur that are actually coming on board with your coaching, which is I think again speaks to the power of what this movement you've created here, Ben.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few dudes that I've actually invested with into their systems as well. They're also out there, got their own communities, doing events like big events, speaking events, and I don't know if people know these people, but my buddy Michael Faber, he owns Unleash You. He's does that all year, puts on several events,
Mm.
and also has his own community he built out. He's a member. My buddy Emilio Roman, he teaches. He's the owner of Author Millionaire Academy and teaches authors how to take their book and publish it and does it and promotes it and like helps you get a best-selling author book. So super valuable resource. Jose Escobar is a super powerhouse. That dude is got probably 350 members in his community right now
Mm.
and putting on big events and constantly speaking at events. So just a few guys that are in there. And so we got guys like that. And then we got guys in there that have also just started, or a couple guys don't even have a business. They just want to level up. So really all levels of people to get in proximity with, but that's why also we're going to have two different types of calls as well, and
Mm.
maybe more, so that if it's people's preference, they don't want to be in the same type of room as someone that's not in alignment with them, and that's a problem for them, which I understand. That can be set up. So the beauty of this is it's really catered, and I can get the feedback and input from the members to make sure there's a good experience for everybody. And that's what I love about it, and having full control over my own system.
Absolutely. Oh, this is very exciting. Now, we've spoken a bit about your coaching at the present day. Can you tell me a couple of your aims, hopes, and aspirations now for the future? And this could be within coaching, within your personal life. Just if we just extrapolate maybe perhaps the next 5, dare I say, even 10 years' time, Ben, just a chance to look into the future.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is build out this community, put on my own events. I'd like to have regularly at least 5 events of my own that I put on, whether it's collaboration with somebody in their community or whatnot. I want to do that. I want to get 2,000 videos in the curriculum portion of it in the next 5 years.
Nice.
And we'll see how close I can get. I may be able to do that with the way we're thinking about ways. I'm talking to Lightspeed, and we're thinking of creative ways to expedite the filming process, so I can do it from home instead of having to travel to Las Vegas every time to go into the photo to the videography booth or whatever. So that's the plan with that. 2,000 videos in 5 years for that system.
Nice.
And as far as the members go, I would love to have, I'm trying to get like 100 a year. So ideally 500 in the next 5 years would be really cool. That's the goal. And so I got to really track. And what's cool about goals is it's all numbers, right? If I know a number, now I'm just going to reverse engineer that over time,
Yes.
right? Just to divide 365 by the 100 members. Now I know, break that up into months. Now I know how many I need to try to get in that system per month. And that's the goal I shoot for. And then I maybe aim a little higher so that if I come up short, I'm getting close to my goal.
Yes, I love it. I love the thinking. It's brilliant, particularly that, as you say, chunking, however you describe it, whatever it is, we can break that down into maybe monthly, daily, maybe
Yeah,
hourly type.
exactly.
Yes. And I only mention that, my friend, because one of your most recent videos, I loved, you were talking about personal accountability, which has been a big thing for me since my training days. It continues today, but particularly my competitive training days. I had the great privilege of having the coach that really drummed that in. Every 60 minutes, what are you doing while you're up physically? What are you doing to further your physical well-being in order to win a fight, or whatever it may be? So I love that, and I did see that video, and it was a good one on personal accountability and the power of an hour. With that being said, and we're coming to a close for today and for now, Ben, but if we may, just briefly, and this will be, of course, many, 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 many decades into the future. But if we were to look now at the end of, your physical life, would you, just for a moment, and not in the spirit of being morbid, but actually to really, to the great introspection this can foster, what would you like to be as a man, as a person, some of the things you'd like to be remembered when all is said and done? What were some of the things you, as a man, would like to be remembered for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would like to be remembered for somebody who helped people. I would like to be remembered as someone who always made myself available to people, always respected the people that I said I respect, person of integrity, um, some of the values, family, and self care. And I want to be known for someone who created something that's going to impact people's lives and help their lives positively for generations to come. I think that's the coolest thing ever, right there. Something that can just scale and perpetually live on, and know that as long as it's out there and as long as the attention is on it and it's accessible to people, you're not limiting the amount of people that are exposed to it. It's actually helping people, especially if you know when you got good stuff, and you know when you got stuff that's valuable and it's effective and people need to hear.
Yes.
So I think that's what I really, out of above all the things I said, I want my legacy to be is with massive impact coaching and league, to let that live on, let my daughter take that over when I pass away, and let that live on. I want, that was one thing I wanted to say real quick, because I am looking to get more females in this. I have yet to have females, and I need some strong, powerful females or ambitious females in this. So I want to get more involvement with the females. And like I said, even when my daughter takes it over, that's the vision. Let her children take it over and it lives on.
Beautiful. And now thank you for that answer, by the way.
Yeah.
This is the absolute last question for today. We will pick this up because I've had such fun doing it, and you deliver masses of value. Ben, if you could speak to your younger self now, perhaps between the ages of maybe even 8 and 13, would you have a message for that young man that may or may not be confused, may or may not be uncertain about the future and his role in it? But are there any words of wisdom? And of course, for context, when you're talking to that person, you're helping somebody listening and or watching. So anything you would say to the younger Ben, if you could go back and talk to him?
Oh man, I got two that I'm struggling to choose between. Um, let's say, what would be more impactful for the 8 to 13-year-old? Um, you know, I'm gonna go back to mentorship, since that seems to be something I coined. Um, but there's also, like I said, I struggle because there's another one that's really good for 8 to 13-year-old. But what I would say was, um, I might have told you this already too, and it's really the concept of the misguided mentor in my book.
Mm.
But the whole point of that is, if I was to lean down and think, because I was short when I was 8. I'd lean down, say, look, young man, I want you to remember this. You have been mentored your entire life. You've been mentoring people your entire life, even to this age. I don't care if you're 8 years old. All right. Whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or you don't. And now that you know this, I want you to make a conscious effort to decide from now going forward, who are you going to get your mentorship from? Who's it going to be? And I also want you to decide how you're going to show up as a mentor to other people, no matter what their age is.
No, that's powerful, Ben. And in closing, can you just share a couple of links, how people can get in touch with you if they want to continue the conversation, indeed find out more about your work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really active on Instagram, Benjamin John MIC. John is spelled John, but yeah, Benjamin John MIC is my Instagram. You could reach out to me, benjaminjohn.net. It's my website. But probably the two primary ways to get a hold of me. But yeah, even if you don't want to reach out to me and you want to just kind of check me out and see what I'm all about, what kind of content I put out there, how I conduct myself, all that stuff, you can really get a good sense of that by following my Instagram. So I look forward to it.
Great stuff.
I appreciate you letting me plug myself too, James.
Oh, it's important. It's important. It's reciprocal. This is how it works.
Oh,
The
yeah.
more people that are doing good work, helping others, leading others, particularly in these times, I will support, and I always do. I want to thank you for your time today, Ben. I want to thank you for your outstanding and excellent work in the coaching industry and space. I want to, and I thank you for having the bravery and courage, and I use those words deliberately, for following your heart and for making such a positive impact already in many people's lives. So thank you.
100%. Thanks again. It's been a pleasure. I always like talking on these type of podcast interviews. It's always great, man. And then again, you had some really good questions there that were kind of getting me to go back a little bit into the dirt and into the weeds. And I like that, man. That's what makes a really good conversation. So I appreciate that. It's been great, man.
Well, thank you. For now, thank you for your time, Ben, and goodbye.
You bet.